Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast.
So, Lucille, how are you today?
Well, thank you for having me. I'm great. I mean, at the moment, you know, in France, it's like late summer, it's sunshine. So I still feel like I'm on holidays, not la rentrée yet, you know?
You're refusing to go back. You're like, no, it's still holiday.
Absolutely.
Now, obviously, you're French with a beautiful name like Lucille. Tell us a little bit about where you're from and what you do.
So I'm from the south of France. Actually, I grew up in Lyon, but all my family is really from Provence.
Oh, nice.
My dad is from Nice, and my mother is from this small region, which is much more rural, called Camargue. So a bit more towards the west. So I'm like 100% a Southern girl, and my heritage or my culture is really from there because, you know, France is like, it's probably small for Americans, but still you have this diversity.
Yeah.
So I'm really from there, and I'm very attached to this kind of local culture. And what do I do in life? Originally, I'm a fashion designer.
Very cool.
I will tell you later about that because my family was in textiles, and nowadays I quitted like fashion, let's say the hype of fashion, and I went more towards lifestyle. So I work really with textiles, and I have my own lifestyle brand. So I produce home linens and fashion accessories.
Very cool. Yeah, I love looking at your website. You have all these beautiful table designs. I love the patterns. I mean, a lot of this must have been inspired by your time in the fashion world. And talk a little bit about that, like the beginning. Like, what were you doing in the fashion world? You were styling, you were working on the shows.
So I studied to be really like a fashion designer, so really for clothing. But my thing has always been the textiles, and it seems that when I did my studies, so I studied abroad design, and we were free to experiment many things. So I also learned to do many things like weaving, knitting, and silk screen printing. And I realized that I had really this sensitiveness for prints, even though I studied mostly to make garments. So when I was hired, I worked for LVMH, and actually I was just headhunted by Kenzo when I finished my master. So I did prints because I have this, like you said, very colorful style, very lively, those kind of big patterns.
Yeah.
So when I was in studios, I actually, I was working for this brand particularly with their archives. So kind of redo special pieces for the shows, like really doing the creative work.
Wow, that sounds so fun.
So it was fun, but if I quitted, maybe we can just, it's a lot of pressure to work in the luxury industry. Yeah. And when you're really like creative, it can be, how can I say, like a bit, you feel a bit limited.
Yeah.
Because you know, you have the marketing was coming to you and say, bon, it's beautiful, but, you know, that's not going to sell. And I felt a bit, as a very creative and very artistic person, a bit frustrated. So it was fun. Of course, I had this kind of, like the lifestyle that maybe people are like dreaming of, like going to shows, going to cocktails and stuff. But artistically speaking, I felt a bit restricted and a bit frustrated, especially because Paris, okay, I do live in Paris, but when you're from the south, It's a bit hardcore.
Yeah, definitely.
Like it's a bit of a shock, and the fashion is very different. I love colors. And okay, Kenzo was fun, but he still had to be a bit more minimalistic.
Yeah. He
So
could go all out.
A bit difficile.
Yeah, definitely. And what made you brave enough to take that jump and start your own brand?
Actually, it happened that after a few years, about COVID stroke. And in the beginning, like everyone, we were at home and paid to do nothing in the beginning. And because I had this kind of years, I almost forgot why I did that job. And eventually I was managing in the end. So not even doing so much creative work, like going to meetings and then calling the factories and being between design and production was my job in the end, or managing other designers. Yeah. So I was there at home, looking at my sewing machine, looking at my sketchbooks, my pencils and stuff. And I started to connect back to like my passion.
I love that. So yeah, that was a time many people just reconnected with their passions, what they wanted. And it sounds like that's what happened for you.
Exactly. And especially it was also a time for me to ask about my own values, because, I was in the luxury industry, but you have to know that nothing is like, for the shows, maybe things are made in France, but after the production is sent somewhere else, you know, because profit and stuff. Yeah. And when I was at home, I was like, is it really like what you want to do? Because you had this family story in textiles. I will talk about that later. My great-grandparents were weavers. And I was like, we're slowing down. People are understanding that, you know, made in France, working locally, working for your community is important. So for me, it was like, that's the opportunity to like do something that is really me, artistically speaking, but also maybe something that is more meaningful than simply work in fashion because it's cool. And I've always been passionate about textiles. So I think COVID helped me to find back this sense, like connect back, like a lot of people were just, you know, in their daily routine and in the end, not so happy, but not really understanding why. So for me, it was the opportunity to continue, but just doing it meaningfully, something like this. Definitely. So that's why.
And talk a little bit about that. You say your great-great-grandparents were weavers, like this long line of family history.
Exactly. And if I'm in this field, it's because, I'm the only girl in the family and the last one. I have only, there is only boys around me, and even my cousins are bigger boys. So when I was small, my grandfather, who was the one who passed to me this heritage, thought, teach me how to use the sewing machine, and also like brought me to visit the factories that were still alive in the south of France, because like many Western countries, textile has been since the 60s, kind of like sent especially to Asia and stuff. So the industry was dying, and in my family, textile was associated with a moment of, like, it was difficult because in the end, my family, like many others, workers in the industry, lost their jobs. So textile was a bit painful history, but still I felt in love. When I was 4 or 5, those kind of running in the mills, like hearing, because weaving mill, like the looms, they make a lot of noise. And I was totally in love, even with the smell of the machinery, of the oil. I was completely fascinated by that, by threads, by everything. And it seems that I was, as a child, very manual. Like I would just do many things with my hand. I did ceramics, I did paintings, I did like manual child. And I was the only one in the family who had this kind of, the others are all scientists. Even my parents are scientists. So, we say in French, le mouton noir. Like the black sheep, the weird one, the weirdo. So
you say that in English too. I love that. You are the black sheep.
The black sheep. And then it was for me also, I was fascinated. I think I had this very particular touch with it. And particular also bond because I haven't had the chance to know my great-grandparents. They died before I was born. But it kind of created this special bond with so it's my father's family and my grandpa. Yeah. So that's why I got this. And, you know, when a child is kind of obsessed by something, they're not really likely to change. It's like, I'm gonna do this. And then because I was a bit of a different child, at school it was not so easy with the others. You know, I was this kind of, we say in French, dans la lune, like in the moon, like not so social, very shy, but always drawing. And I kept having this dream in my mind, I will work in textile. But, you know, from a 5 years old to a, let's say, 18 years old, the dream didn't change, but like the shape of it changed. And because my parents would not accept that I take, you know, more of an industrial path, like really manual. I had to study, let's say the classic. I went to high school, I studied science. And when I was 18, I said, okay, so now I'm gonna go. And I studied something that was acceptable, that was design, because it was still intellectual. Yeah. Like not manual, but my thing is really to make something with my hands. That's why also I come back with my own brand to this, because even in studio, you're back in behind the computer, and that was also
you want to work with your hands. You want to create the product.
Exactement.
So it makes sense. And coming back to your brand now, talk about the name. What inspired it? Tell us more.
Okay, so for our non-French speakers, maybe it's not going to talk to them, but so it was for me coming back to my story, coming back to my roots. So something that would evoke Provence. But at the same time, after being in the luxury industry for many years, I was like, people have, you know, such egos. They think they're saving the world, but actually it's not so serious. So I wanted to have a little play on words, a little joke. And Pastisse, I don't know if you know what it is. It's the most famous apéritif in the south of France. So when I think about my family, I think about the apéritif, like it's in the countryside. So, you know, the door is open. All the neighbors are coming around 6 and, hey, let's take a pastis. Even the grandma was 92. She's taking the pastis. Everyone is always, you know, taking the pastis because it's the south, or even drinking outside a little pastis. And for an audience who doesn't know what pastis is, it's not strong alcohol. It's made out of anise, this plant, and you drink it with a lot of water, usually cold. And it's something that is very traditional and something that it bonds people together. Aperitif is this before dinner kind of little get together when you have a little drink and maybe a little snack. And it's super popular in the south. And people usually, it's not planned. It's like when people come, maybe a family, maybe a neighbor, maybe a friend, and it's l'apéritif. So it's really meaningful for us. And then I made this play on word with tisse at the end, because the wording, the spelling is a bit different for tissage, which is weaving in French.
I love that. It's such a nice combination.
Voila. And then I felt it doesn't mean anything. French people get the joke and they think it's fun. Others, they don't. But it seems, I've asked my friend that in other language, maybe pastisse or pastisse, it doesn't mean anything, but it also sounded quite nice to the ears of my foreign friends. So I was like, okay, let's go for that. But it reflects the textile origin, my passion for weaving, and my, let's say, a bit joking personality, like not so serious.
Yeah, I think it's super like cute. That. And it's perfect for the South, like you said, with the narrative. And that's something I really love about when I would visit the South, is just people sitting out in the garden, they're having a drink and they're eating delicious food, and the air is fresh, and it's just such a beautiful thing that you don't get in Paris as much.
No. You don't, and I'm glad you're saying that, because Pastisse was born exactly to that. During COVID, I saw people being so sad, you know, being at home, like being really lonely. And I realized what people need is really to be together, to bond together. And with Pastisse, I really wanted to share this culture of the South, which is, this generosity and encouraging people to just spend moments with each other. That's why also I started to do home linens, because I wanted to create those meaningful objects to encourage people to take the time and live bit more this slow life, because during COVID we understood that life and moments with our loved ones are so precious, because you never know what happens tomorrow. So Pastisse reflects also that, like what you say, this kind of let's just be together, and life is about that, like c'est la vie.
I think that's really beautiful. I love that. That's such a beautiful theme around it. So talk about your collection today. Like, what is your process? How do you create the designs? How do you decide? Tell me how you do it all.
That's actually not so complicated, because the good thing with having a brand, which is really inspired, in my case, by Provence, let's say that the inspiration is not so broad, that I know it has to reflect something a bit Provençal, or at least the land, something like this. So I have two main inspiration. First, but that's because I'm a textile nerd. I do a lot of research on old textiles that I try to modernize, because there is really, if you have been in the south of France, you have all these typical textiles called indiennes. And they have been, I think, in fashion since at least the 17th century. So it's textiles inspired by Inde, so India, because before we were producing them in France, they were imported, printed on cotton via Marseille.
Wow.
After we started to mix, let's say, those, so it's paisley patterns, inspired textiles, with the taste of Provence, so there's very colorful colors and those kind of floral patterns. So it makes this kind of paisley / exotic florals. So I'm really inspired by that. So I go a lot, because that's also something I love, on flea markets to collect old textiles. I look, of course, what's at home. I look in books. I do a lot of research. And I even go to museums to really look at what was originally in the past. So that inspires me a lot. And I would say broadly, decorative arts. So I collect also, let's say, old tablewares, and because before, plates were painted by hand with those very typical florals as well. So I really look what was the fashion, especially in Camargue. We had this very local culture in Arles. I don't know if you know Arles, but we still elect our queen, for example, and people they're really attached to their tradition with those very colorful textiles and those costumes, because now it's called costumes, but it's like 100 years that people don't dress like this anymore, because for example, I've been collected in my family old black and white pictures from the 19th century. From celebrations of things where I see what were like traditional patterns, costumes. So that interests me a lot. And then just personally, I'm very inspired by nature. So and flowers, because I think flowers is the most, when you love to do textile prints, I think flowers is really the thing. So I'll think about what represents, like I haven't done lavender, but I shoot my tables in lavenders, but for example, poppies or peonies, or sometimes I do also citruses, and each print tells a story, either a story of the land. For example, if I do some citruses, it's really to talk about Nice and the Riviera and more this kind of atmosphere. But then if I do more some flowers with colors, it may be more inland Provence, like Peron or something. And then when I do prints which are based on those traditional patterns. Then I talk more about Camargue. So these are my inspirations, and I try to bring those very colorful and vivid colors, because for me it really reflects the mood of the south of France, the joie de vivre.
Yeah.
So every choices I make is really to try to convey this idea of, if not Provence, because maybe if people don't know the land, maybe they don't make the link directly, but at least the south, the sun, this kind of Mediterranean dolce vita, thing like this. So this are my inspiration, but it's always something I will remember, a childhood memory or a place I like, or an object, an old object I've seen and that inspired me, which is either an old textile or usually old ceramics. So, well,
so many pieces. I love that inspiration comes from all different corners to create these beautiful beautiful linens, and talk a little bit about what makes your work different from maybe other table linens. I mean, obviously your family, your background, living in the South, but is there something that also makes your linens different from other brands?
Absolutely. So let's go to the most technical part of the discussion. So I'm passionate about weaving. And then my great-grandparents had a technique. Alors, it's on shaft looms. I'm not sure how to explain it in English, but this kind of technique that's been a bit lost. So I wanted to even like recreate my own weaves, get inspired by this old technique already to weave my own fabric. So I think what differentiates me is I have this approach where I really want to save the knowledge and the craft, try to make it modern. So to save it and to reinterest people of like what was textile. So how do I work? Is that I prepare my samples on like by hand on an artisanal loom. So I do small samples by hand. It's me who weave, who really reinvent the weave. So how like the yarns or the threads are intertwined on the fabric. So I really try to make this special little pattern and textured fabrics, which is this technique from the 19th century, which I try to do, that makes it very special. And then I go to those small factories and I ask, okay, this is what I did artisanal, like artisan. Can you, let's say, industrialize it? Can we reproduce it? So we adapt it. So really my work is in between artisan, but at the same time, a small production that can be adapted on very old machines. So that makes it special. Really, like the base fabric is special, of course, after you have my drawings. And another thing which was very important for me was to source everything locally. So, for example, for the yarns, I go to different mills that are in France and I just ask, oh, do you have leftovers? Can I just take it, try to upcycle fabric? So it's really this responsible thing. So sometimes it's linen, sometimes it's cotton. I cannot choose, but at least I know that it's the most responsible possible. Yeah. Then I weave with my own weave, small batch of productions. Then I print and I craft everything locally. So unfortunately, in the south of France, you don't have so much, let's say, industry left. So I can weave only in the south of France, and then I print. And so it's stitched near Lyon, because it's where you have nowadays still the biggest industry, because the luxury industry, they produce near Lyon. And for example, because I was lucky enough to work in the luxury industry, my fabrics are printed at the same factory that Chanel prints. It's all by Chanel. So everything is also really the best quality possible you can have. And yeah, I really have those commitments of saving the knowledge, doing something very unique, very artistic, and at the same time with a very responsible production with my own story. So
Mm-hmm.
I have this real focus on the product because I'm a designer and I'm a textile nerd. I believe others don't have, because usually people who make brands, it's not necessarily, like passion that make brands, but more this kind of marketing opportunity or things.
Yeah.
And they don't know the technique like I do. I'm okay, an artist, but I'm
Yeah.
also an engineer at the
Yeah.
same time. So I have fun, but I know that my products are really, they bring something positive, they bring something good, they're responsible, but I also try to push the craft to its
Yeah.
limit. Something like this. So now you know.
I love it. I mean, it's just such a fascinating process. And the fact that you're bringing in this old way of doing it, this old
Yeah,
technique, and working with some of the best in the business and everything, I mean, it's all coming together. It's like you were made
exactement.
to do this. This is what you're
Yeah,
made to do.
exactly.
It's so beautiful. And I want to switch into talking a little bit about creativity. Obviously, you are a creative genius. You're doing a lot of different things, being creative in many ways. But how would you define creativity in your own words?
Wow, that's something very difficult. Okay, so I'm going to have a very spontaneous shot on that. I think it's not something you choose. It's
Hmm.
something that gets out of you. And for me, creativity is probably a combination of having 100 ideas at the same time and the will to make them alive. Like, it's okay, you have all these ideas, but you want to make them tangible in the
Yeah.
world. And at the same time, I've noticed, and I'm one person like this, that really creative people, they are really good at problem solving, they're really good at starting all these projects, but what interests them is really the process, starting those projects, but finishing them. you know So I
Not so
would say
much.
that creativity is about having ideas, trying them in every direction, always wanted to try something new, being very curious, being passionate about the weirdest things, like me, those very special textiles or things like this.
Yeah.
So doing something out of that, but not necessarily finishing it and then just jump to the next opportunity, the next idea. And also being able to, like in fashion, you see the world and you in such a different way. Like, it's pure poesy. And
Yeah.
in creativity you have also this hypersensitiveness, that you're constantly like a child who every day rediscovers something new. Like, you wake up and you're like, wow, look at the sunshine. I'm sure today the sun doesn't like have the same color as yesterday. So
Yeah.
creativity for me is also about perceiving the world in a very, not strange, but for most of the people it's kind of strange, and being touched by very different things. Like, we have this capacity to be happy in a very different way just by observing what's around us and then transform it into an object, into something which others really can see. So
Yeah.
that's what I would say, but it's really difficult
To
to
define.
define. I would just, well, conclude like this: a creative person for me has 100 ideas at a time, will try them, but won't finish them because others are coming.
I think that's a great definition. It's so true. I mean, we're excited about so many different things, and
Voilà,
sometimes people think, oh, they're crazy. They're all over the place. They're not making one decision.
voilà,
But
exactement.
that's
All
the
over the place.
exciting part, is just moving around and following whatever's interesting in that moment.
Exactly. Perfectly what I wanted to say.
I love it. Well, I think that's a beautiful note to end on. And where can people connect with you, buy your products, check out your linens? Where can they see what you're doing?
So I have a website, which I think so it's Pastisse, soleil.com. And you
Okay.
will probably write it down, where you can find my linens, a bit about the brand, a bit about the philosophy, the commitments.
Exactly.
But if people really want to see me experience this life in the south of France, they can just go to my Instagram. I run it by myself, so if they want to connect or ask questions, I'm always there, and I really enjoy to make those little reels about the life in the south of France, because it's something also I love to share. So they can see the linens, they can see the products, but they can also understand a bit the philosophy, the lifestyle, and the person who is behind the brand. Because for me, it's very important that people see it's really incarnated by a person with me, Lucille.
Yeah, exactly. A person living. There's a real person behind this brand. It's not just a marketing scheme.
Yes.
It's all history and a beautiful history. So thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And I will share all of that in the show notes so people can click and check out your work and buy some beautiful linens.
Well, thank you so much, and hope you all enjoyed this little podcast with me and Christelle. And Christelle, merci again for having me. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. The pleasure was all mine.
Thanks so much for tuning in to La Vie Creative. You can find more information on MissParisPhoto.com. And if you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word for all my creative guests. We have the power to help them to keep doing what they love. See you next time.